So, hi, this is Skye McColeman.
And this is Debonee Morgan, the Radical Mystics.
We are the Radical Mystics, and we are coming to you from a stormy night in beautiful Decatur, Georgia. So, there might be some thunder chiming in.
Yeah, but the cool thing is, we're in my office, which is almost 200 years old, built in 1830. And so it's probably haunted to go along with the thunder and lightning. So it's going to be a very fun episode.
Ooh, well, and this isn't even a Halloween episode. Ooh, there's some thunder right there. Okay. So, do you want to introduce the topic we decided on?
Yeah, I mean, we've got so many topics. It was really hard to choose, but I was interested in talking about movies. I've always been a fan of films ever since I was a kid and saw the Aristocats. And when I was at Living School, I wrote the film column for our alumni newsletter. So I'm especially interested in the intersection of film and spirituality and how that gets captured. And I know that you are likewise a film buff.
Well, for me, it was The Parent Trap, and to this day, I'm carrying the torch for Haley Mills.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, Lindsay Lohan is adorable, but I'm totally Team Haley. What can I say?
You're old school like that, you know?
I know. It was a double feature of The Parent Trap and The Jungle Book.
Oh, The Jungle Book.
It was a fun day.
You know what? That's funny you should say that. The Jungle Book was actually my first film because my aunt took me when my brother was born.
Okay.
And so The Jungle Book was my first. The Aristocats wasn't until we were living in Florida. So
All right, yeah. So are we going to talk about just movies we love in general, or are we going to try to keep it on a radical mystics kind of a
I would
theme?
let's say both because I will really can't not talk about Buckaroo Banzai. Although specifically Buckaroo Banzai's travels across the eighth dimension,
Mhm.
but I don't know that even me working as hard as I could, I don't know that I could get that layered over mysticism. I maybe, but so I don't know. The three that I've come up with are ones that I think we can overlay with mysticism
Okay.
or spirituality, at least in general. But yeah, if you haven't seen Buckaroo Banzai, you're just not cool enough. So go see Buckaroo Banzai.
It is a fun film. I will grant you
And
that.
you know who's a fan? I hope I don't out him in a way that he wouldn't want, but since he wrote a Substack on it, is Rabbi Rami Shapiro.
Oh,
Yes, he was talking about Buckaroo Banzai in the midst of some spiritual concepts of him. So, by the way, go subscribe to Rabbi Rami Shapiro's Substack and look for the Buckaroo Banzai one. It's really good.
say that three times fast.
It's really hard.
All right. Well, can I jump in?
You
Why don't we
start.
take
Yeah, go.
turns?
Yeah, let's do
Maybe
that.
we'll each come up with a movie,
Yeah.
and I want to lead with Miyazaki's Spirited Away.
Okay.
So, and I'm assuming you know it.
I am familiar with it, but I don't know that I've seen the entire film.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm
uh,
just not big on animation.
yeah. Well, and I adore animation, and I especially adore Miyazaki.
It's a very beloved film.
Now I also really love Tom Gunn and Irish animation,
Okay.
and then we could spend this whole episode just talking about Tom Gunn and the Secret of Kells, and I think it's called Song of the Sea. Especially those two. Wolfwalkers is all right, but let's focus on Spirited Away. Obviously, it is a
So this is your big nerd coming out, is what you're saying.
you know, are you surprised?
I'm not, but I just want our audience to know.
Yeah, no, it's this is me. And so the first Miyazaki film I saw was Princess Mononoke, which would
That one I have seen.
now that would be a contender. That would be a contender. Howl's Moving Castle would be a contender, but Spirited Away wins the prize. And
Okay.
and part of it is I just, Shihiro, the hero, the young woman, the character is spunky and strong, and of course she is put into and just a scary situation where her parents, it's kind of a Circe vibe. I just saw the
Mhm.
Odyssey last
Right.
night. So her parents are turned into pigs by this kind of evil spirit. And she has to rescue them. And to do that, she has all sorts of trials that she has to go through, but she is whisked into the other world. And so it's very much all of Miyazaki's film have a Shinto dimension to it.
Mhm.
So strong kind of Shinto vibe. these kind of spirits, these chthonic spirits, spirits of the land, spirits of the water, that this little girl has to navigate, all in this quest, again, kind of a justice quest, to
Hmm.
to liberate her parents from this spell that, and we could argue that their parents kind of deserved it. Because, another thing is that with the Miyazaki is there's a strong environmental ethos, and the parents were
Yes.
guilty of overconsumption. And so they're punished for that by being
Oh,
turned into pigs. But still, the little girl manages, I don't want to give away too much, but she
okay.
manages to complete her quest, but with a lot of really, really beautiful moments. I mean, all Miyazaki films are gorgeously drawn.
Yeah.
So you have just that beautiful quality, again, that deep otherworldly kind of mystical sense of the realm of the spirits, and a pretty strong kind of moral slash ethical dimension to it. So when I think radical and mystic, that film to me really embodies it.
Without going into too many spoilers or too many plot points, were there elements of the other world or the underworld in this film that connect with, more familiar to many people, the European model?
Mm.
Like, how does Shinto work with European Christian mysticism, or is it?
Yeah, I don't think it's a Christian film at all.
No, I wasn't implying
But
that it was, but I was
but
saying for those, if that's their jumping off
I
point,
would
where do they
say
meet the Shinto?
I would say the entry point would be the hero's journey
Okay.
with Joseph Campbell. I think that Shihiro, the main character, really does embody that
Okay.
kind of quest. I mean, all the way down to the dangerous return. So a lot of the elements from the hero with a thousand faces, the hero's journey, I think would be very familiar to the viewer. But yeah, I mean that's part of the wonder of Miyazaki's films, is that they now, some of his films are based on Western source material, like Howl's Moving Castle, for example.
Uh-huh.
But I think Spirited Away is original story. I may be wrong,
Okay.
and so and Princess Mononoke also. If you really want to get into those films, take some time to get to know Shinto, to get to know indigenous spirituality, because it would reward you from
It's very nature based, yeah?
nature-based. It's pagan, in the best sense of the
Uh,
word. Deep love of the rhythms of the earth, and strong sense of the sacrality, the divine in the presence of the ancestors and the presence of the spirits of the land, but also kind of some god and goddess figures showing up as well.
okay.
So,
So it sounds somewhat panentheistic.
oh, certainly that,
Okay.
again, kind of a Western concept that could be a nice entryway into the story.
Nice. Okay, great. And, so now I really should watch that film. I know that it's very beloved, and I did see Mononoke, so
Yeah. Hmm.
I enjoyed that.
Hmm. Hmm.
My son is often the person that's going to push me into trying something that I might not otherwise, and so yeah, I got wrangled into that one, and it was very pleasant.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so I guess the one I would start with is this is something that we've watched within the context of ZG in our spiritual direction training program.
Hmm.
Is in our last meeting of the second year, we want to do something fun, and so your homework is not reading another big book, but and so I've always assigned us to watch the Darjeeling Limited, a Wes Anderson film about three brothers who go on an intentionally spiritual quest that goes horribly pear-shaped, as our British friends would say. Um, and I just think there's so much to unpack there,
Hmm.
starting with the luggage, pun intended, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't want to go too deep because we don't want to spoil things, but we also want to whet people's appetite to that this might be a film for them. So one of the things I love about it is I love this is the same with music, and we'll talk about music another time. But I love an artist who can make you laugh and make you cry with the same
Hmm.
piece, the same story.
Hmm.
And Darjeeling is very funny, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I It's very funny, and it's also very m- meaningful, purposeful. It's crafted to hit your heart,
Oh,
I think.
it's yeah. I mean, the whole sequence with the little boy that dies is to me.
Thanks for the spoiler.
Well,
No,
I didn't give too much. I didn't give that could come at
okay, yeah,
any time in
fair.
the
Okay, yes,
story,
fair, fair, fair.
you know.
But no, yeah, of course.
But
That's
to me, that's the emotional heart of the film.
it is.
But it's also, very much, it's a film about a dysfunctional family. And of course, that's a trope in Wes Anderson's films.
Yeah.
But, and of course, again, without giving away too much, that by the end of the film, the love in the middle of all the muck
Yes.
is I think, what I take away from that film. And
Yeah.
hopefully viewers will be able to really discern that for themselves.
Yeah. Well, and for me, the spiritual piece of it is and the comedy of deciding that you're going to have a mystical experience,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's like having a goal to be the world's best meditator, right?
Hmm.
Like you're just not going to get there. And you spoil the experience by trying to make it about something egoic,
Yeah.
right? And so these and especially uh I always forget his name, the blonde,
Owen
the
Wilson's character.
Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson's character,
Uh-huh.
who is of course the ringleader in all of this. But this idea that
The self-appointed ringleader.
the self-appointed ringleader,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But the idea that we're going to march right into a mystical experience, and I've got an agenda, and I've got a timetable,
I'm gonna make it happen.
and it will happen, and you've got external resistance from the brothers, but then you've got the cosmic resistance of that's not how it works.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can't sign yourself up for a mystical experience, and I think in the end they certainly do have a profound mystical experience, but it comes in the most
Yeah.
unexpected way
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
And like you said, the love that they find for one another is part of that.
Hmm.
But I think that by the end of the film they had the experience that they wanted, but it looked nothing like what they would have
Yeah.
anticipated.
Yeah.
And so I love that because I think that's a tenet of mysticism
Hmm.
is you can't buy it, you can't sign up for it, you can't even work for it.
You can't. Yeah, you can't engineer it. You cannot make it happen.
Yes, and there is a scene in this film that involves being in a flowing river,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's where the mystical stuff happens, is when you're in the flow,
Yeah.
when you just jump in and you're going to get taken wherever you get taken, and they do. And this is not a spoiler, but I love the symbolism of it's not a spoiler to say that their father has recently died.
Hmm.
And they are literally carrying around his baggage.
Hmm.
All of their luggage is their father's luggage
Hmm.
that they have packed their stuff in. And so they're literally carrying this baggage.
Yep. Yep.
But when they get to the river, the baggage flows down the river
Yep.
and it's gone.
Yep.
And it's about letting go.
Yep. Yep.
And so I just think it's beautiful. And then there's just little quips along the way that are about non-dualism in my mind, and which I attach with mysticism. But for example, one of my favorite lines in the movie is the guys get off, they start on a train, they get off the train, and they're like, why is the train stopped? Like it stopped in the middle of nowhere.
Uh-huh.
And so they come and they find the engineer and the crew of the train, and they're like, what's going on? And they say, oh, well, we're lost. How does a train get lost, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I just love that idea that this mechanical thing that's on rails and it has a destination and it's going where it's going, and also it's lost,
And it can get lost.
right?
That too.
And I think that's our human experience, right? We set up our train track and we hop on board, and it's like we're pretty damn sure of where we're going, and yet
Until it's not.
until it's not,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And until the moment where we realize we're not really driving the
Yeah.
train, and the ticket we bought is not necessarily going to get us where
Mm.
we need to go. They end up where they need to go.
Yeah.
And the other thing that, and I doubt this would be a spoiler, but Angelica Houston plays their mother.
Right. Hmm.
And to me, it's fascinating because I can't figure out if she's the good mother or if she's part of the problem of the dysfunction.
Hmm. Oh,
Because in a way, she abandons them.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just this mother that abandons her own, now they're adults,
Right,
right?
right.
So you can't really abandon another adult, but she just leaves them.
Hmm.
And so one way to interpret it is that's part of their heartbreak that they're trying to heal, is this disconnection.
Right.
But on the other hand, she's a nun in this monastery,
Hmm.
and the reason she leaves is because somebody's in danger out there, and there's like a wild animal on the loose or
Yeah,
whatever. And so
the
she,
tiger. Remember, it's
oh
the
yeah,
tiger.
oh,
Yeah.
the same tiger. And so, and so she leaves them because they're grown men,
Uh-huh.
and somebody else needs mothering right now. And
Well,
so, in that sense, that's what a good mother does, is leave, leave people, I'll say, to make it more general, to grow for themselves.
you push the birds out of the nest. That's how
Yeah.
they fly.
Yeah.
And and of course, and I think you're right that her character is one of the most fascinating characters, even though she's only in the movie, what, maybe 10 minutes or
If
so, and
that,
towards
yeah.
the end. But of course, she's very much, I mean, they want to see her. I mean,
Yeah.
she's very much part of the story all along, and is much of the engine that drives the plot. And I think she is deliciously ambiguous, and I'm sure
Yeah.
intentionally so.
And yeah, I love
You know,
that.
and that and yes, that she is on her own spiritual quest, and that also casts a shadow, which I think is important for anybody who's serious about their own spiritual quest. It's kind of like, step number one, and maybe this is the purification stage of the journey, is owning your own shadow
Yeah.
and looking at, while I'm running off to the monastery being all holy and sacred,
Hmm.
who's paying for it?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a really important question.
Yeah.
The movie
Yeah.
really does poke at that.
Yeah. 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 No, I agree. Oh, there's some more great thunder.
Yeah, the thunder's here. Well, the next movie I would like to talk about, I haven't seen in forever. So I'm probably only going to be able to speak about it in very general terms. But it's a movie that I saw when I was younger and that really, really made an impact on me. And I really want to see it again. And this is making me think I should. And that is the Wings of Desire by Wim
One of my
Wenders. So
faves.
maybe you can
One
speak
of
to
my
it.
faves. I love that
It's
film.
it's a visually stunning, beautiful, beautiful film,
Yeah.
and of course deeply contemplative. Moves at just this wonderful pace. Nick Cave and the Bad. So that was my
Yeah.
introduction to Nick Cave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was,
Yeah.
was Wim Wenders, was the Wings of Desire, but of course it's an extended meditation on the relationship between spirit and matter,
Yes.
and the corporeality,
Corporeal.
corporeal nature of all authentic spiritual experience.
Yes. Yes.
And how, the mystical quest is also an erotic quest, and I think a lot of people get squeamish about that.
Yeah.
But think about the statue of Teresa in ecstasy in the
Oh,
Vatican,
yeah. Yeah.
where,
It's
by,
not in the Vatican.
well,
It's
it's
at a
in Rome.
different church across town.
But
Yeah, but
it's
it's
in
not in the
Rome. It
Vatican.
is in
Yeah.
Rome. That's right. It's in Rome,
Yeah.
and how there is a pretty obvious. I mean, she looks like she's having an orgasm.
Yeah.
This obvious kind of ecstasy that is etched into her face.
Yeah.
And of course Freud would have had a field day with it, because the whole thing with the angel and the spear,
Uh-huh.
and the
Yeah.
spear is plunged into her and pulled out, and plunged into her and pulled out, and she's just loving it,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people get squeamish at this idea that mysticism is erotic, but I think, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. And mysticism has always had a profoundly erotic dimension to it, and Rings of Desire gets into that. And I'm not just talking about sex, I'm
Right.
talking about embodiment, I'm talking about
Yes.
desire,
Yeah.
and and love, and connection, and touch. So I think that movie just is a brilliant, invitation to that dimension of the spiritual life.
Yeah, and I'm thinking for a second because uh yeah, the if just a cursory reading of the film would say, you know, this angel wants to be with the woman because he's in love with her, And sure, I mean, that's how it reads, and that makes sense to us. We get that.
Hmm.
But to what you're saying is that, yeah, that's a whole other layer, is not just for her sake, but for his sake, to be embodied,
Hmm.
to experience that, and the price of it is to be finite,
To be mortal, yes.
right?
Hmm.
And we all pay that price. We didn't necessarily choose it, as far as we know, but
Hmm.
maybe we did, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, and so the to me, one of the funniest lines in the film, it's not especially funny throughout, but when Peter Falk, who plays himself,
Hmm.
Peter Falk,
Right,
the
right, right.
actor,
Uh-huh.
is walking down the street, and the boys walk by and they're like, "Hey, it's Columbo." And the other one says, "Well, Columbo wouldn't be here. Like, of course that's not Columbo. What would he be doing walking around our street?"
Yeah. Is it
Right?
like Berlin, I think, is where it's set?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think. And so that talks about the corporeal experience as well.
Uh-huh.
That Peter Falk is a man,
Hmm.
but he's also bigger than life because he's a recognizable actor.
Right, right,
And so they're like, is that him in the flesh, so to speak?
right, right, right.
And it's like, no, no, he's too good. He wouldn't be here, right? Like there's something about that pull of normalcy versus bigger than life. Like it's humans versus angels. It's
You're reminding me, and I don't know if this might be a rabbit trail, but I've never seen a rabbit trail I don't like. Um, there, after John Lennon was killed, Yoko Ono released the single that he was working on the night that he
Mhm,
was shot. And it was a song, it was her song, and it was called Walking on Thin Ice.
mhm.
And on the B side of the single, she had, instead of another song, she had just like a 5 minute audio of her and John walking through Central Park.
Yeah.
And it was, it's just a slice of life
Yeah.
from John and Yoko walking through Central Park. And of course, John Lennon loved living in New York because, as one of the most recognizable celebrities on the planet, he felt this was a place where he could live something of a normal life,
Yeah.
which of course was ironic because then he ends up getting killed by a fan,
Right.
uh, you know, who does not escape me, grew up within a couple of miles of where we're sitting right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But in this audio, and it's been years since I've heard this, they're walking through Central Park, and somebody must have walked by and recognized them
Right.
because John, in his Liverpudlian accent, says, "Oh look, it's John and Yoko," and so kind of teasing, at the fan freaking out,
Right. Yeah.
and so the but yet there was affection there too. But isn't that, and I mean, and you lived in LA,
Yeah.
to be in a world where you do have celebrity sightings,
Yeah.
and and yeah, that sense of this is somebody bigger than life, and yet it's just an ordinary person,
Yeah.
and
Which reminds me, I want to do a shout out to my friend Cameron, who's an actor in LA. He's the one that turned me on to that film. So,
okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, so at any rate, maybe we should carry on. What would be your next installment?
oh, let's see. Um, I- and I just watched this movie this weekend. Come on, come on.
I don't know.
It's when I was sharing it with my friend, I said this is my favorite movie that nobody seems to have seen.
Hmm.
It was not nominated for any awards, which blows my. I mean, at the Oscars, but maybe elsewhere, but blows my mind because I think it's a fantastic film in a million ways. It's I can't tell you who directed it, but it stars Joaquin Phoenix,
Okay.
and it's black and white. And I can't remember what year it came out, but it's maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It's not really recent, but it's not really old. It's black and white, and cinematography is just heartbreakingly gorgeous.
Hmm.
And the gist of it is Joaquin Phoenix plays a guy like, imagine Ira Glass. He
Hmm.
works for something like NPR, and his job is to travel and interview people for this radio show, presumably. Because there's audio recording, but there's no camera recording. And so um, that's what he does. And he gets a call from his sister. He's in New York City, she's in LA, and there have been some crises within her family, and she needs him to help her by coming to LA and watching her son, his nephew. And, as the story transpires, you learn a little bit about their family history. You learn a little bit about um, what they've been through as adult siblings, and what the little boy, who's, I guess he's 9 or 10 ish,
Hmm.
has gone through. And work gets demanding. He ends up staying longer than he had intended, so he ends up having to take the little boy with him back to New York, and then they go on a shoot in New Orleans. And so um, it's about the importance of family. It's about how we connect with family. But the one of the devices in the film that I love is, he's parenting this child
Hmm.
who has a routine and needs to get in bed at a certain time, needs to brush his teeth, and needs to read stories like many of us have done with our kids at
Hmm.
bedtime.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so in the film, as they sit down to read their story, it shows you, like a chapter title, it says the name of the story and the author.
Uh-huh.
So what he's reading, and you might already be familiar with it, or you might, you can go um, look it up. And then he reads some pretty good stuff. And I since we decided on this topic sort of last minute, I we've got a place to put show notes, right? Like,
Yeah, we'll
okay,
add
so
this.
I'll add some show notes here so people will know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But the poems that he reads are very spiritual in nature,
Hmm.
in the stories that he reads.
Mm.
I know the second one is called Star Child, so
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of listeners will be familiar with that one. Um, and to it's interspersed to reflect, of course, what they're going through in their actual day-to-day lives, gets reflected in this. Um, and it's about expressing yourself. It's about learning how to be an emotional person. It's about, as Teilhard says, about spiritual beings having a human
Human
experience. We're
experience.
back
Yeah.
to the embodiment, right?
Yeah.
Um, and having to parent when he had no experience doing that forces him into empathy and forces him into examining himself, because the things he says and does obviously have an effect on this other human being.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I won't say anything more to avoid any specific spoilers about what happens, but it's a beautiful exploration on a day-to-day scope of what it means to be human and to be
Yeah.
loving
Wow.
and to be connected. So there's no mysticism per se, but there's existentialism, and to me those they're sort of intertwined,
Sure.
right? Mysticism is part of existence that gives meaning to the rest of it, I think.
Well, and the next film that I want to talk about is, I think, a profoundly mystical film in a kind of a traditional
Okay.
Christian sense of
Okay.
the film, the word. But I appreciate that, and that I'm not familiar with that film at all.
You love it. I
But
really think y'all should sit down and watch it.
yeah, and I think that the reality, to talk about the mysticism. So the film that I want to talk about now is Terrence Malick's A Hidden Life, but which is, and again,
I love Malik. I don't think I've seen that
all right,
one.
well, I'll tell you a little
Okay.
bit about it, but it's also a film about family.
Mhm.
But to acknowledge that we don't need a film like that that is all about the Catholic Church and all about a person with a deep faith. Um, to talk about mysticism. That
Okay.
is one way to talk about mysticism, but that mysticism also shows up in the most humble and down to earth. There's a Japanese film, and the name escapes me right now, but it's about a man who cleans the toilets, the public
I haven't
toilets
seen it
in
yet.
Tokyo.
I know what you're talking
And
about.
I remember, because Spirituality in Practice wrote a wonderful review of it, and I just went out and bought it, and the streaming rights, and just loved it. It's absolute. So when we do part two of this, that'll be one of the contenders.
Yes.
But let me talk about Terrence Malick and A Hidden Life. So it's the story of, and I had to pull it up because I can't remember. Of
Oh,
course,
you're cheating. I should have
I
grabbed
know, I
my
know.
phone.
You can use your phone. Nothing. There was nothing that said you couldn't use your
Sorry,
phone.
we did not
So,
establish the rules ahead of this.
so Franz Jagerstatter. doctor. See, and I could not have remembered that name, but he was Austrian. He was a farmer and a peasant farmer. He does not have a lot of money. He is living in Austria. He and his wife, I think they have a couple of children. They are pious Catholics. Their faith matters to them. They live close to the earth. The and of course Malick's films are all gorgeous,
Yes.
and this film is no exception.
Sweepingly gorgeous.
So you fall in love with the Austrian, it's just the splendor of the Austrian
Yeah.
landscape, but also the splendor of Franz and his wife's passionate love for one another.
Yeah.
Let me use theological language, their sacramental love.
Yeah.
And so the first act of the film is just breathtakingly gorgeous. But then, of course, the shadow of Nazism creeps in because
Yes,
the film,
now I know exactly which film you're
yeah,
talking about. I did not go see it because in the theater I wanted to, but it just looked like it was going to break my heart, and I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
strong
My
enough
wife
for
still
it.
hasn't seen it. I think she's kind of afraid of it, and it is a film that will break your heart. Absolutely, it is a film that will break your heart. But and again, I don't want to say a whole lot, although it's a matter of historical record, so it's not like there are any spoilers here.
Yeah,
But he basically refuses to sign an oath of allegiance to Hitler,
yeah,
and they want to conscript him, and he's unhappy about that, and he refuses to sign, and he ends up in jail, and he does end up eventually getting executed for this. But the church, the bishop, the establishment, they all just tell him, oh, just sign the bloody paperwork and be done with it.
yeah,
And he refuses. He absolutely refuses,
yeah,
and he pays for it with his life. And of course, the story, which the film does not go into, but the story is that he is eventually made a saint of the Catholic Church.
I didn't
His
know that.
wife lives long enough to attend his canonization.
Oh,
And of
that's
course, the
beautiful.
Pope who canonizes him had been a Nazi in his youth.
Oh my
Pope Benedict, yeah, Pope Benedict, who had been,
God. Oh,
uh,
Benedict is one.
yeah, because what
Wow.
was his name? Oh man, I'm having a senior moment.
Oh, I only know him as Benedict. I don't know.
Joseph, whatever. But he's the one that went after Matthew Fox and went after Hans Kung and Charles Curran.
Yeah.
He was Pope John Paul II's Rottweiler. And then, I mean, that's what they called him. In the church, that's what they called him. And then he became Pope Benedict XVI. But he had, as a youth, he had been a member of Hitler's youth. And of course, the argument could be, well, was he truly a true believer in Nazism? He was always more Catholic than. But then here you have Franz, who was not only more Catholic than Nazi, he paid for it with his life.
Yeah.
And so it is a movie about. It is a deeply mystical movie in that it, in a very garden variety way, looks at this man as a pious Catholic,
Yeah.
but sweepingly beautiful sacramental look at nature and look at love, the love between, a husband and a wife,
Hmm.
and then also the radical dimension that he cannot sign allegiance to a corrupt politician, even though he knows he will pay with his life, and he knows that that means he leaves his wife a widow and he leaves his children orphaned. The existential crisis
Right.
involved in all that. And I'm not saying, that even that he made the right choice. I mean, I can understand why people would have told him, sign the bloody paper and live, and then fight Hitler. You live to fight Hitler another day. But still, the integrity is there's something
Yeah.
breathtakingly honest and beautiful about that. Ratzinger, Joseph Ratzinger,
Yeah.
was the man who became Pope Benedict XVI. And so yeah, so that's a mystical film in a kind of a traditional Christian sense of the word.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think some of these other films we've talked about, certainly broaden the scope of what mysticism is. So do you have one
Yeah.
more for us?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that of course reminds me of Bonhoeffer,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
and it would be where we'll do another episode in the future about incorporating radical into mysticism, right? And your great blog post did a good job of that, but to expand that more, because having nice, pretty experiences is lovely. but what good is it if it doesn't transform you into the kind of individual that believes in something bigger than yourself
Mhm.
to the extent that you sacrifice for that,
Right.
right? And so, as Bonhoeffer did,
Mhm.
and as this gentleman did. So, yeah, yeah.
And Martin Luther King Jr.
Well,
and
yeah,
Gandhi and Mother Teresa, the list goes on,
yeah,
of just amazing figures like Greg Boyle, who's a Jesuit priest today working with the gangs of Los Angeles. I mean, so many amazing people like that.
yeah,
And again and again and again, they're not just doing this because they have strong political convictions. They do have strong political convictions, but they're driven out of that deep spiritual heart.
right,
Yeah.
right. Because at that point it becomes political. The personal is mysticism is personal,
Mhm.
and the personal is political.
And it's also deeply communal, and
Yeah,
that's also
yeah,
political. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So my last one is Life of Chuck. And I went and
Yes.
saw this in the theater several times.
Yeah.
And this year we changed up the movie for ZG and we watched Life of Chuck instead of Darjeeling.
Ah,
Um, and I love everything about it. There are definite ways to spoil this film, so we'll have to dance around it to not mess anybody up.
dance
But
around it.
okay, so that's not a spoiler.
Yeah.
That one of the most memorable scenes in the film involves, and this is Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah.
Although there's other great actors in it as well, and I'm a huge Mark Hamill fan, have been
Mhm.
since 1977 for obvious reasons. Um, but
After this film, I was saying Luke who.
there you go.
I think that Mark Hamill is brilliant in
He
this film.
really is.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
really is.
yeah, yeah.
And the script is, holding up a lot of the brilliant performances because it's so well written.
Mhm.
But the one of the more memorable scenes, and again, not a spoiler, is this gorgeous dance sequence
Mhm.
that happens spontaneously, as if as in musicals, people just break into coordinated dance numbers all the time. But the film is not a musical.
No.
It plays like a regular narrative film, but that dance sequence has captured everybody's imagination. Um, because I think it's emblematic
Mhm.
of what's beautiful in life, which is
Yes.
frequently spontaneity.
Yes. Mhm.
And we later learn that it harkens back onto something, which doubles the power of it. It's like it's the moment matters, but also all of the spider web that attaches to any one of our moments in life.
I'll just say this: the children's dancing to me is
Oh,
absolutely as incandescent
yes.
as that dance with.
Yes.
And I wish I could remember the name of the woman that the Tom Hiddleston character dances with.
Yeah, I
But
don't remember
but
any
they're
other.
both stunning, stunning. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. I mean, it's Fred and Ginger quality dancing.
Yes, it
And it
is.
just
Yes, it is.
and the woman playing the drums. Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
it's so great.
Mhm.
But the way the film begins um is, I thought, profoundly mystical
Yes. Hmm.
because first of all it's just confusing.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And it's mysterious,
Yep.
and you see the trailer for the movie and you think you know what you're getting into, and then you sit down in the theater or on your couch and you're like, wait, what, this doesn't, what, where's Tom Hiddleston in this, like what's going on?
Mhm.
And it's a little disorienting, and mysticism is frequently
Well, and
disorienting.
isn't the first act of the film called Part Three?
Sure, yeah.
I think we can say that because that's in the very beginning of the
You're gonna
film.
see that right away.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
the very
part 3.
beginning of the film. Yeah.
But
So
that's one of the questions. It's like,
it's
wait a minute, why am I
parts one
looking
and
at
two.
part
Yeah,
3, right? Like,
parts one
what's
and two.
what's going on?
Yeah.
And then the way it continues to unfold, um, to ultimately, uh, which is the most mystical experience any of us will ever have, which is what is the end of somebody's life
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
It not just medically and not just interpersonally, but mystically.
Yeah.
Like, what might that experience be like? And I think this film presents it in a way that is absolutely unique. I've never seen anything like it.
Mhm.
And um, it captures sort of the sadness, but also it's not all sad.
Well, one of the big questions of the film is, should we be afraid of death?
Yeah,
And and I think the film answers that question in a deeply mystical way.
I think so too.
And I don't want to necessarily say any more than that,
Right, but yeah.
but it's unflinching in how it steps into that question,
Yes.
and I think that um, we don't. Our culture is afraid of death, but the mystics aren't.
Yes.
From the monks with their memento mori, all the way down to people like Ladislas Boros or Kathleen Dolan Singh,
Mm-hmm.
contemporary mystics who have written so beautifully about the spirituality of the death and dying
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
that death may be at the bottom of all of our to-do lists, which is where it belongs. But when we get there, we don't have to be afraid of it. And I think this movie makes such a case for that posture.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And going back to the idea of the dance sequence and how that transpires and what we learn about all of those spider web threads is um I just lost my thought right there thinking of spider web threads. Uh oh, the finite, the infiniteness of spirituality can, especially mysticism, reassures us of the infinite, that which is bigger than ourselves and always will be, and that uh, the infinite exists within every cell of our body, and every cell of our body exists within the infinite. And also, we're finite.
Yes, we will die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, the best way to be finite is to recognize that we're finite and dance, to spend those moments dancing.
When you hear the drum, start tapping your feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think we held ourselves to 3 each. I have lots of great,
Well,
runners up, but
we can
maybe
make as many episodes as we want.
we can do this again. But in the meantime, let me just make a plug, for those of you who are listening to this. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. You can find our Substack at radicalmystics.com. If you are in the North Carolina area, we will be doing an in-person program on Radical Mystics on September 3rd, 2026 at the Wild Goose Festival. Would love to see you there.
And you can find out more about that at wildgoosefestival.org.
But when we'll see where this conversation goes from there. But we're excited to be sharing not only our love for movies and our fascination with the mystical and with the radical with you, but also, community. We want to talk about community. We want to talk about transformation, interior and exterior, which again, I think is what radical mysticism is all about.
Yeah.
And we'll see whatever else comes up. So,
Yeah. Look forward to the next one.
all righty. Are we done?
We're done.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.